What it is. Hey guys, I had a guy ask me a pretty simple question that it wasn't really a easy answer to it. So I was thinking about it and I was like, gosh, this actually is actually a really good question for how simple it is. So basically it's two questions and I don't know how I'm going to title it, but the first question is basically, does direct contract freight pay? I think it was how he worded it was way better, or quite a bit more than the load boards. And my answer was yes and no. It's not cut and dry, basically. So, I guess I don't have any experience with load boards other than I've signed up and then I've never really used them. And then what I do is mostly bulk. So I'm not super into it to I feel like I can really answer this question accurately, but I don't do. Thankfully I have enough work and I don't mess around with them too much. And then I feel like I've been doing it for long enough that when I don't have my own work, I'm still not going on the load boards. I'm calling up, somebody that I know, and I'm networking off of the load boards. So it's like the same thing, except for you already have all the people's numbers. You just call them up and say, hey, what do you got going on? I need work, or I'm looking for a load. I got a load going this way. Do you have anything coming back? Do you want to share the work? And that's kind of how it works. It's the same thing as the load board. You're going and talking to a broker, but you just got their numbers. It's like you sign up for the load boards and you go and you find all the people that are kind of going in the lanes that have loads in the lanes that you want to go to, and then you cancel your membership and you still got the names. It's just kind of, you keep the names, you run your business, and that's just how it goes. So, and there's people that use the load boards like that all the time, and they're very established, and they're constantly just looking for good loads coming back from where they're at. But the thing is that I just do mostly local, so it's more localized. So I don't know if that answers your question with that, but the whole idea of it does direct pay more than the load boards? Yes, it does. I guess would be the simple answer, but it doesn't. But like back last year at this time when rates were like super high, some people might have been tied down to a lower rate, because basically the load boards are basically all the extra loads that a normal company can't cover. So like this isn't a fact, this is just how I view it, right? So like a normal company has a contract with a business. And then so like for myself, if I have agreements with companies to service their needs. And then when I can't service their needs, that company, because they have too much demand for what I have capable, that company might have to pay a premium to someone else to do one or two loads. But then when it gets slow, they don't fire me. They just move on from that person, and they just keep me busy. They're dedicated to me. I just can't fulfill it. Now what could happen is if I do that enough, they might have to find somebody else, and then I get fired. So you don't want to do that. And then, but there's two things that I can do. One is I can look for work. I can pay more than I get for it if I'm concerned that they're going to fire me and I don't want them shopping around. So I could pay somebody else a lot of money. Let's say it's a $1 million contract. So I do $1 million worth of trucking for one company. I'm not going to let somebody else come in there. I'm not going to tell them I can't do it. And I can afford to pay somebody, for an example, like the car hauler company that paid me $125. People, they don't understand. Well, how can they pay you $125? Well, because they're giving their lease operators, they're making 25% plus their fees off of them, and they've got 100 of them, so they can afford to pay me more because they need to get some things accomplished, if that makes sense. So a load board is kind of like, even though it doesn't seem like it, it's almost like express freight. Now, the broker probably is charging a premium because it's a onesie twosie thing. Now, sometimes there's different, this is just, this isn't set in stone, because there's some companies that just use brokers for their everything. And then the broker, but even if that's the case, that broker that's always on the load board has trucking companies that are always doing dedicated freight for that broker. And then when they have, peak type of season or stuff like that, then they go out and they look for other trucks. And then when they do that, then if they like you and stuff like that and they want to work with you, then they might offer to you a dedicated run that's always through this broker. So there's stuff like that happens. But the idea is that the load board is more supply and demand. When there's a shortage, they got to pay more. They're only going to pay what they got to pay. So when there isn't a shortage, the rate could go ridiculously low, and the rate really is a lot higher than that, regardless of what the broker says. They're just full of baloney, especially if you don't have a relationship with them. So that fluctuates. Now if you're at the high, then it might not make sense, where you're like, oh, it just doesn't make sense because the load boards are paying so much better than what a direct client is paying. But the idea behind a direct client is that you're building an actual business when you have direct clients, something that you could actually sell, for one, and two, you're negotiating a rate that everybody can live with. The client isn't paying a premium because they're committing to you, and you're not doing it for a ridiculously low number because this is something that you got to do long term, so you have to be excited about doing it. And if you can't make money at it, then it doesn't make any sense. So that's kind of, I thought it was really a basic question that you asked, but it was a good question that I never had thought about it the way that you'd asked it. So thanks for asking. And then part two of this was, he basically said, the reason I'm asking this is because I have some people that want to sell me their trucking company, and they basically, I'm assuming they must have their authority up and running, but they don't have direct customers. They just have they use the load boards. So it just depends how much money you have. If you want to, because he's asking, should I buy one of those companies? He didn't say, or should I just start one up myself? But it depends on how much money you have. I wouldn't be paying a premium, but sometimes you just have way too much, not too much, but you have way more money than you have time. And then you start paying people to do things for you. So if that's the case, then go ahead and look into buying something to get you started right away. But otherwise, you can do it yourself and then work and get the contacts. So that's basically it. My wife was meeting with the accountant, a CPA.
Turn it off.
Okay, so that's pretty much it. I think that answers it, so hope you like it. Bye.